Here we go again. It is May Day for, well, the entire National Football League because it's Drake Maye's Pro Day, and the Denver Broncos are there, so we are here to talk about it. It's Orange and Blue today. Cecil, Lammey, Andrew Mason, and Mace. This is a big one. I think there's, well, quite a few teams, and two teams specifically, the Broncos and the Vikings, that are quite interested in seeing what Drake Maye looks like today.
Indeed, Drake Maye working out in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. And then on the other side of the country, Michael Penix Jr. at the University of Washington out there in Seattle. So he's getting less play on May Day, but the Broncos are going to have their personnel department divided between both spots. Probably a little more interest in Drake Maye than Michael Penix Jr. at this point, but the fact that they're going to make sure that they're at both, I think, says a great deal.
Yeah, it does say a great deal. And with Maye, and pro days are set up so that guys look great. But when you have that arm, and we'll get to Penix in just a little bit because he can absolutely sling it. But when you're Maye and you're out there impressing with these deeper passes, these sharper passes, these rocket passes, that's going to make teams really excited near the top of the draft. He's been falling. Well, let's not overblow that. I don't think he's been falling at all. I think Jaden Daniels has been rising, and that's why Maye may be seen as falling by some.
Yeah, and I think also the other thing with Drake Maye is that teams were looking at what happened last year. There's always more weight to the most recent season compared to the first one. But I think that can sometimes lead to a mistake when you start looking at that. Ask yourself before you kind of downgrade for last year. Ask yourself why. Ask yourself about the protection issues, that sort of thing. Ask yourself how little of what went askew for the Tar Heels last year was on Drake Maye. And Drake Maye was often the person that was keeping them in games. And also, the other thing is, just watch the tape. I mean, you start putting it on, and you're seeing high level throws all over the place. You're seeing deep outs. You're seeing ropes that are 40, 45 yards down the middle of the field that are getting from A to B so fast the defense can't react to it. Like these are there are plenty of high level NFL traits there on the tape. Does he need to become more accurate? Yes. Can he improve short to intermediate? Yes. But by and large, those things can probably be coached into him. Now, the question then becomes, what's his processor? Does it match up to some of the others? Are we talking about a processor that is like what they say about Bo Nix? And if you find it to be of that level, then certainly even in the Broncos scheme, Sean Payton scheme, you start saying, okay, Drake Maye can fit really well.
Yeah, our friend Doug Farrar had a show with Greg Cosell, and we could say two of the best when it comes to evaluating talent. They said Bo Nix has a supercomputer.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he's got that. Maye, to me, it's the processor, Mace, but it's also the personality, right? And getting to know these quarterbacks as much as you can, and there will be top 30 visits during the month of April. We'll get more clues as to who they might be bringing into the building, but just kind of understanding that at the combine, Maye may have been a little, I don't know, nervous or whatever. Easton Gibbs talked about it, right? Because Easton Gibbs did not perform well at the combine, his own admission. And then at the pro day, he was much more comfortable. He's always great to talk to. But it's like with Maye, I don't think we should read too much in his shorter answers because Nix had the short answers as well. So it's like, all right, are you a little more comfortable at home in the comfy confines at North Carolina?
Well, the other thing also is those are to the media, not necessarily to the teams, right? I mean, it's a different environment getting up there in what might have been the biggest press conference that you'd ever had, and then getting into a suite at Lucas Oil Stadium and talking ball with Sean Payton and Davis Webb. Like, these are two different things, and it's possible, and I would also say maybe even likely, that Drake Maye was more comfortable in that environment than he was with a few hundred reporters kind of asking questions and then some dunderhead asking if he thought birds were real, right? I mean,
right.
Yeah. that stuff still bothers me, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it does me as well. But with Maye, it's like you can impress in person because it's talking ball. When we're sitting at the table with Sean Payton, he's answering questions and he's being friendly and cordial. Except to Jarrett Bell, sit down. But like when he got questions about ball, Sean Payton lit up, right?
Oh yeah.
So imagine Drake Maye. They're just talking ball, man. That's what they get fired up about.
Exactly. Like talking to, what gets Sean Payton going is talking about what he's looking for when he's watching a pro day and the things he's doing. He's looking for when it's the one-on-one. That's the stuff that got him going. I mean, Drake Maye, don't forget, he comes from a family of athletes. His father played quarterback at the University of North Carolina, probably would have been a good NFL quarterback had he not had arm issues. Basically, he did football and baseball, did Mark Maye, his father. And by the time he got to college, his arm was basically shot. Like he put too much strain on it and did manage to play at the college level. And I think actually briefly played in, remember the World League of American Football? The Raleigh-Durham Skyhawks back in 1991. They went 0 for their history, and that was it. But then you've got, of course, he's the youngest of 4 brothers, is Drake Maye. The most famous of those elder brothers is Luke Maye, who hit the dramatic game-winning shot for the men's basketball team at North Carolina against Kentucky back in 2017 in the Elite Eight. And the thing is, you get some competitive fire when you're in a family of athletes and you're the youngest, and you've got to kind of fight and fend for yourself a little bit. And the thing is, the thing I look at with Drake Maye, and I don't think it's apparent just because he's got on the field, he's got a pretty cool demeanor. He's also got a very resilient demeanor. Like you don't see one mistake becoming like 4 or 5. Like he's able to kind of to get back on the horse, not lose confidence in himself, and go out there on the next series and rebound nicely. I think some of that comes from being in a highly competitive family like the Maye family is.
Oh, for sure, man. Especially when you're the baby, because they're going to beat up on you, and you gotta stand up to that. So the competitive fire is there. Make no mistake about it. And the plays from under pressure. Again, going back to our friend Mike Tanier, everyone get on a Substack because the numbers he had, Maye's numbers were higher, much higher than Caleb Williams. They weren't as high as Bo Nix, 9.6 yards per attempt under pressure. Yeah, but he was well above that threshold. While guys like Spencer Rattler well below, Caleb Williams also well below. USC's offensive line notwithstanding. But Maye's dealt with pressure. He knows how to do this.
And the other thing is, I think obviously people are, there's a skepticism for those who helmet scout. Like, Sam Howell hasn't quite worked out. I don't think the book is closed on Sam Howell by any stretch of the imagination.
No.
Mitchell Trubisky didn't work out. Now he's kind of settling as a backup. First of all, don't helmet scout. Second of all, if you want to kind of make a comparison and why I was telling you about Drake Maye relatively early in this process, and you see it on film, whereas Sam Howell tends to, dart around and try to buy time, and sometimes will move himself into sacks. What you see with Drake Maye is a quarterback who very naturally climbs the pocket more than Sam Howell did, and is a threat to run the ball, but is more decisive at taking off to run when the opportunity does avail itself. So this is another thing to me with Drake Maye is you can actually you can have designed runs for him, and he's going to present some challenges for defenses when he comes in there, because if you give him the freedom, and I imagine if let's say he's playing for Sean Payton, it's 1-2, and then if it's not there, see what you can do with your legs. If you give him that freedom of that, you're going to have to account for that as a defense. It's going to be a stress point because that freedom means he's going to take off and get a quick 10 to 20 yards, keep the drive moving. Defenses are going to have to account for that, which means there's going to be gaps in coverage. And I think Drake is smart enough and quick enough to exploit those gaps.
Yeah, he can be dangerous as a runner in this league. Not Lamar Jackson level, maybe not Josh Allen level, but he can scoot. He can get out there and he can run, and that's something to watch out for when you're weighing perhaps staying at 12 and picking Bo Nix or moving up to 3 or 4 and getting Drake Maye. if you could beat Minnesota for him, because,
Yeah.
well, I believe, and you believe, Minnesota's guy is Drake Maye. So, like, this is a huge day, like the monumental impact of this day because of Maye, and also Penix we'll get to. It cannot be overstated. This is a monumental. This day could determine the direction of the Denver Broncos.
It could. And it's funny to think about the possibilities. Drake Maye in a Shanahan-McVay offense, which he would be in if he goes to Minnesota and plays for Kevin O'Connell, and Drake Maye in a Sean Payton offense, which is rhythm and timing, getting it out and taking advantage of the space that's there. It's almost like Drake Maye, if these are two of his possibilities here, and then, of course, don't dismiss New England, but specifically, if it came down to Minnesota, Denver, he almost can't lose, right? And he has the skill set to be successful in both of these offenses. That's what's, so exciting watching him. And I admit, I did plant my flag on the case of Drake Maye a while ago, but
he was a backup. I want that to be very clear. When you and I were talking about Sam Howell, you said they got a guy behind him. And I was not yet familiar with Drake Maye. So this was whatever year it was. I don't even think we worked together at the time.
The backstory, Cecil, is that he was a hotly recruited quarterback nationally and looked like he was headed to Alabama before he decided to go be part of the Maye family legacy at North Carolina and go there. I do wonder what his draft status would be if he'd gone to Alabama, because I say, and you say, don't helmet scout. Inevitably, people do.
Yes.
If Drake Maye had gone to play for Nick Saban, I think the outcomes the last couple of years would have been slightly better. I mean, hey, maybe we're talking about Michigan losing in the semifinal this past year instead of winning. If
maybe we're talking about Georgia not having their titles.
Yes. And there's an alternate universe where Drake Maye goes to Alabama and actually he's the number 1 overall pick, not Caleb Williams. It's not that far-fetched to see that as a possibility. Right. And I do think some of the skepticism, and I think it is justified, is he's running relatively simpler offenses than the more complex pro-style system he would have run at Alabama. And that's why you have to focus on traits and also focus on upside a little bit, because this is the thing, and this is part of what you're trying to ascertain when you sit down with Drake Maye. You're going to go from, you're going to go from freshman level courses to basically graduate school, right? How's that going to go for him? And you've got to get to the bottom of it. Now, that being said, he's got the skills. He's got the skills set. He's also got a connection with Luke McCown, of course, the former NFL quarterback who
was it Luke or Josh? Because Josh was
Josh McCown.
Coach.
Josh McCown. Josh McCown. Sorry, coach. I got my McCowns mixed up.
A couple of McCowns floating around, but it was Josh that was his high school coach. Top of my head, I believe that's correct. So he's got that connection. So Minnesota has that connection too.
Yes, because Josh McCown, remember, he was coaching high school ball while he was still playing, right?
Yes.
And Drake Maye went to Myers Park High School in Charlotte, and Josh McCown was working on the staff there before he had retired from his playing days. So he's been, he would get to every game, and he would get basically, I think he got to one practice a week, and he got to every game. But he's in Drake Maye's ear, and this is part of why we are talking about why do we think the Vikings are so keen on Drake Maye, and maybe the JJ McCarthy stuff was a smokescreen. It's that deep connection that goes back to high school, right? I mean,
Yep.
And so it's exciting to think about Drake Maye if he's available for the Broncos. But my expectation is that when all is said and done, somehow, some way, Drake Maye is going to be wearing purple and gold.
And the Vikings will get their guy, and the Broncos will get their guy, and they'll both talk about how great it was to get their guy. Is Michael Penix the Broncos guy. Now, we'll stay Broncos specific for Penix because I think, honestly, if you're at the top of the draft, you're going to be super interested in Drake Maye. You should be interested in Drake Maye. But everyone else could be more interested in Michael Penix because he'll be more available, right? Wherever that is, Mace. He's available at 20 or 31 or wherever. Michael Penix has first-round talent. There is no doubt. But today's decision, basically what you'll see and kind of put that notion towards and use actionability to create probability is looking at his pro day, knowing he can flat out sling it. I mean, just zero effort when it comes to slinging it. He can put it where he wants it. He can put it there in a hurry. He can throw with touch. Like, as a passer, the delivery is super ugly, but the passes are so damn pretty. So it makes you go, all right, what else besides that arm? Because we see that arm, and that arm is amazing.
That arm is amazing, and also it'll kind of factor into what we know about Michael Penix Jr. because we know he operates well when he's not under pressure. The question is under duress. But we saw it watching him at the combine earlier this month, and it'll be evident at the pro day. He'll make all the throws. And what Drake Maye and Michael Penix Jr. have in common is, you know, they'd say easy gas, easy cheese in baseball. They don't put effort on it. Like the one thing, and I think kind of what separates arm talent, these guys, from J.J. McCarthy is J.J.'s got to put a little bit more anguish on it to make some of the outside throws, the deeper throws, and Bo Nix also has to do that. Mm-hmm. It's easier. These are, you know, to use a term that gets thrown around this time of year, like they got bazookas, they got howitzers. To Drake Maye, Michael Penix Jr. The interesting thing on Penix, of course, the Broncos did interview him, as they interviewed all of the widely considered to be top 7 quarterbacks at the combine. So when they met with Jaden Daniels yesterday, it wasn't the first time that they've had a pretty formal sit down with him. They did in Indianapolis. You know, they sat down with Michael Penix Jr. in Indianapolis, and that was a tough meeting. That was, as Michael Penix Jr. described it, quote, an interesting meeting, unquote, and different from the others. Said it was tough. The Broncos were showing Michael Penix Jr. his bad plays, his faults, not his attributes. They were challenging him. And the question then is, you know, Michael Penix Jr. thought he handled it well. Did the Broncos think he handled it well? Because there's a long history of going through this process and guys thinking, man, I really bombed that interview. And the team's like, no, you didn't. Like, look, Sean Payton mentioned it on Monday. You're trying to find the breaking point and see where that is. You're giving J.J. McCarthy a massive amount of information at 5 o'clock and telling him we're going to see you the next morning.
After his pro day.
So it's in the middle of the come down from the high of being, you know, the belle of the ball. That's pro day. So you're finding out how much he was able to ingest in a short amount of time. And this is part of kind of learning not only about the process, but how much information they can ingest in terms of learning a scheme. So in that environment, when you're showing all these bad plays and what you could do wrong, what you did wrong, you're trying to find the breaking point a little bit of a player, you know, getting frustrated or talking about their faults. That being said, I think, you know, what we see from Michael Penix Jr. is somebody who's pretty candid about what he did wrong. And also, we chatted with him down at the Senior Bowl. This is somebody who can talk ball at a really high level. When he's asked, okay, what do you do? I think it was for a cover 3 beater, right? And he just quickly rips off exactly what he would do pre-snap, moving the receivers around, you know, when he identifies it, you know, before the play. And this is so again, like that part of it up here is a strength of Michael Penix Jr.
Yeah, should be quite impressive when it comes to breaking down and talking ball. That's what we do here on Orange and Blue today, Mace. So we got a tight 20-minute show for you today. We certainly appreciate everyone out there for checking us out on Twitter at Mace Denver, at Cecil Lammey, and helping us do the YouTube things, Mace. How do they do that?
Like,
comment,
share, subscribe.
Hit
that notification bell so that you never miss a
vid.
That's
right.
Yeah, we got to get our time. We had our timing perfectly in person in Orlando. We got to get the timing back remotely.
I will quote Bugs Bunny: "Delays, nothing but delays." So we'll get the internet. Remain undefeated.
Appropriate that you're quoting Bugs Bunny, and I'm sitting here in Florida still, because of course there's that famous bit that's become a meme of him sawing off the state of Florida and having it sail away into the Atlantic Ocean.
Right.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. There we go.
All right.
He's Andrew Mason. I'm Cecil Lammey. OBT is ABFD. We appreciate you all. Thanks for watching. Let's go Broncos. Stay tuned and stay frosty.